Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So, can everyone hear me? No. Can you hear me now? Yes. For those of you that have cable, there's a commercial. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? All right. It is an absolute pleasure to speak with everyone today, and to be part of such a great event. And to be honest, it is very, very long overdue. Unfortunately, I haven't been here for the entire weekend, and I heard many great things about everyone's country and their recaps from their countries. And I don't know if the state of things in your countries are any better or worse than they are in Trinidad, but if you're from local, then you know that we have great room for improvement. Now, a lot of my determination today is based on my time spent in the United States. While I was in Florida, there was a great need not only to do good, but to show the world that Muslims do good. I grew up in a post-9/11 America, and while I was never personally targeted for my hijab, many of my friends and family were. Anyone that tells you that Trump is the cause of hatred in America has been living under a rock. It has been us against them for decades, for centuries, and I'm only talking about the time that the towers fell. Now, Trump has only made it socially acceptable to do what people have been doing without media and social media coverage for decades. And that is what brings me to my topic today, media and media coverage. The media is the medium through which we learn and exchange news and information, by definition. Theoretically, this is supposed to mean the truth, correct? But none of us are that naive. That seldom actually happens. It is always somebody else's version of the truth. It's always somebody else telling our stories. Now, most of my adult life has been focused on proving what people see in the news to be wrong. In America, the everyday actions of Muslims on the streets, in the grocery stores, in the parks, in the malls, in the schools, are under scrutiny. Every action of a Muslim represents all Muslims, the entire religion. We don't wear our identities on our sleeve, an old saying which my sisters referenced earlier, but on our heads, on our chins. And every person whose name sounds anything like Muhammad, Ali, Khan, Hussein is a terrorist, according to CNN and Fox. Now, the media is the biggest weapon in America. It only fights one side, and more Muslims have made it their job to combat the Islamophobia on TV. We now have added responsibilities to our lives. And it was my job on the streets of downtown Florida, feeding the homeless, for people to see that we don't just feed our own, we don't just clothe our own, we don't just care about our own, but we feed everyone that is in need, and we care for everyone that is in need, no matter size, shape, race, or religion, because that is what the Quran taught us to do. When I walk through the grocery stores, I made it my duty to be kind and smile at everyone, because all it takes is one grumpy Muslim who woke up on the wrong side of the bed for everybody else to think that Muslims are hateful people, that we're all mean. Do you want that responsibility? When you walk outside and people see you being grumpy, whether it be because someone gave you a bad drive on the road, you just had a really bad meeting, the next guy who sees you is automatically going to think, because you didn't greet him with a smile, all Muslims hate non-Muslims. Just as how CNN and Fox count their viewers, every Muslim in today's society, thanks to the media, has to count their viewers and our actions. Now, I know it's not supposed to be like that. We're not supposed to worry about what other people think, because only Allah could judge us. But I'm just talking about the reality, brothers and sisters. This is the reality, whether you want to accept it or not. And shortly after I moved from Orlando to Trinidad, I realized that this was also, unfortunately, the same thing happening here. Except here, you have your own enemies even within the communities because racism. I don't know if anyone said that word here during this weekend, but racism is a way bigger problem in Trinidad than Islamophobia is. But I'll leave that for someone else to talk about. When I moved to Trinidad, I pitched an idea to the owner of the Islamic Broadcasting Network for a television series. I figured he must have lots of people that work in the studio. It was an idea for somebody else to do. And to be honest, his reaction kind of stumped me. And he said, well, when would you like to start? Mind you, I had recently moved to the country. He barely knew me. He barely knew my family, but he saw the passion inside of me. This was definitely not the response I was expecting, and it was a daunting task. But I realized it was a great opportunity for me. Not to get the fame or the fortune, but rather to be my own storyteller. Someone telling things from the perspective of a Muslim and a female for once. The world needs more Muslims telling the Muslim narrative. And while I knew I wasn't sharing breaking news, I realized that there were a lot of misconceptions that the world has about Islam that are based on Islamic history, Quran, and Sunnah. And therefore, it was still a lot of merit with my cause. And so, for the past 3 years, I have been sharing the stories of the lives of the prophets, the Sahabas, and the women in the life of the Rasul. My target was originally children. However, I have found my audience growing to include people of all ages. And you may be thinking, how is this helping fight Islamophobia when my audience is Muslims? However, that is where you are wrong. You would be surprised at how many non-Muslim men and women have come up to me. Are you that girl from IBN? Yeah, that's me. Many Christians have watched my stories on the prophets in amazement, as they never realized that the story of Prophet Musa alayhi salam and Moses are one and the same. Most people don't understand how we respect Jesus, Isa alayhi salam, as one of our prophets, and they are even more baffled to learn that Maryam radiallahu anha, is one of the 4 greatest and most revered Muslim women promised paradise by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is on this foundation that people can understand our similarities and find common ground, our equal faith in goodness, honesty, and peace. And that is what we need everyone to understand. We're all good people. The Quran is a beautiful book. The teachings of Islam are of goodness, not hate or oppression. Now, it wasn't until I was weeks deep in episodes that I truly appreciated this opportunity. I realized that there was also a great void in truly understanding the foundations of Islam, even amongst our Muslim communities, as Sister Nafisa very well showed us. In Trinidad, so much is lost in the continuation of cultural traditions. We put so much emphasis on memorizing du'as and reciting Quran, but people miss out on the actual understandings and application of Islam. People need the knowledge and guidance on how to properly apply the principles of Islam to their everyday lives, not just the actions of their forefathers, and certainly not adding to the stereotypes against Islam. It's hard to teach old dogs new tricks. I apologize to those of you who may consider themselves old. But I decided to educate the new generation. The generation that finds Kanye and the Kardashians way more interesting than the stories of Prophet Adam and Prophet Yusuf. To make these stories more relatable and enjoyable, to get them to truly understand how Islam spread, to get them to understand what Islam has faced and the trials that we have faced since the inception. And it was because of strong young boys and girls, the Sahabas, who helped share the goodness of Islam to the world. ISIS is not a new concept to Muslims. We've been fighting this idea for a long time, as Brother Dawood very wonderfully put it earlier. Now, Trinidad is a beautiful country, and there is so much we have to be grateful for. In respect to the freedom for us to practice our religion, halal food is everywhere. That is one perk that America does not have. Getting time off for Jummah is a constitutional right. The adhan can be heard all over the country in every community. And the best part, Eid is a holiday. We are lucky to have an Islamic TV station, too, as a matter of fact. And in Trinidad, Islam is widely spread and for the most part accepted by the masses. However, there is still a huge influence from the American media. ISIS is a growing problem here in Trinidad. And if Islamophobia is trending in America, you bet your last dollar it's trending in Trinidad too. We also have another battle to fight. The critics here are not just CNN and Fox, but my own Muslim brothers. I do not mean to offend any of you brothers, but do you not have dreams for your daughters? I can't tell you how many Muslim men have complained about seeing a sister being on IBN. Now I must ask you, brothers, Muslim men demand female Muslim doctors for their wives. You demand female Muslim teachers for your daughters. And I would have thought by now you would appreciate your families watching a modestly covered sister in hijab on TV, telling them about the prophets and the sahabas and the history and the beauty of Islam. Would you not? We need to encourage our sisters to get their educations and get jobs to strengthen our communities, to break the stereotypes that Muslim women are depressed and oppressed, because we shouldn't be. I mean, you brothers also get the bad rep, don't you, when these things come about? You're the ones oppressing, you're the ones being violent. Do you really like having that reputation out there? I am on TV to break the stereotypes. We have enough people trying to bring us down in society. My purpose is also to show the non-Muslims the same exact thing. I am not oppressed. I am an optometrist by profession. I drive, I speak freely, and when I am done, yes, I am going home to cook and clean up after my family. Last year, I was interviewed by a local TV host for an Eid special on women shattering the glass ceiling. She asked me, "What is a Muslim woman?" And I told her, well, a Muslim woman is just that, a person who is Muslim and a woman. I am not in any way limited by the religion and my hijab. Whatever choices I have made in my life are to strengthen myself, my knowledge, and my deen, as the Quran has prescribed and allows me to do so. I have rights in Islam that many people are unaware of or choose to overlook. My job in media is to educate people on what Islam really is about. My stories may not be current affairs, but at least it's my story. Stories about my people, Muslims. And I am proud to be a Muslim telling the story of Muslims, because when non-Muslims tell our stories, they get it wrong each and every time. When I finished that interview, I was elated. Finally, my audience had expanded. This was one huge step forward. And then reality hit. A writer from one of the Associated newspapers slandered my religion on Eid Day with an article titled, "How Not to Be Killed by Islamists." It shocked me to the core. People protested in the rain outside of his building, and finally, a few days later, an apology was published. Fast forward to this Ramadan, when the same idiot published yet another poorly timed article titled Hijabonomics, about a sister in hijab having to choose between a job to feed her children and her religion. A representative from the same newspaper called me for my opinion. And while I wanted to curse him, his mother, his sister, his brother, his mailman, and every single person that has allowed that person to be in that role that he is in, I decided to take the higher road. Was I still in this beautiful country where every city has a beautiful mosque and children are encouraged to wear hijab to school? Or was I back in Trumpville? Alhamdulillah, shortly after, he was fired for good. And he gave me the reason to get right back behind the camera. I met with the same TV host this year after Eid, and I shook my head when I heard the same question she asked me a year ago. What are sisters doing? Muslim sisters, are they oppressed? No, we're not. Had she not learned anything in the past year, perhaps she didn't want to. And this was all just a reminder that our work is never done. My hijab gives me the drive like no other to prove the Islamophobes and the naysayers of all religions and races, including my own religion and my own race, wrong. Allah protects me. The prophets and the Sahabas inspire me. If I can change one person's perception of Islam to truly understand the beauty within it, then I'd say it's worth it. I am not a perfect role model for the next generation, but I hope that through my show, that others can find better role models than what they see on TV. It is my responsibility to inspire them to be future ambassadors and storytellers of Islam. I want the youth to be proud to be Muslims and prepare them to stand up against the naysayers. I want the young girls to understand that Khadija radiallahu anha, the Prophet's first wife, was the breadwinner of their family. She was a successful businesswoman. She was not too shy to ask him to marry her. And she was the first to pray behind him. The first to pray salah behind the Rasul. These are the types of strong women the world needs. The way they feel strong enough to handle attacks on hijab and strong enough to make a positive impact on their communities, aside from the allegations of ISIS and Frame Bara. Our youth need to embrace Islam in their hearts, not only when it's time to go to the mosque or because their parents call them for salah. It needs to be in their hearts. It needs to be their choice. We all have our role to play in the world to make it a better place. Allah has given me this opportunity, and I'm going to do what I can to protect my ummah. And I don't speak for anyone besides myself, but I hope that others can be inspired to speak for themselves. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you, Sister Sofiyya, for sharing that very passionate presentation.